Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. We are reading a passage from Surah Bani Israel. Yesterday we read a few verses. Today also we will continue with that, and hopefully by tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be finishing this section. Let me start off by reading verse 26, and we'll go up to verse 30. وآت ذا القربى حقه والمسكين وابن السبيل ولا تبذر تبذيرا إن المبذرين كانوا إخوان الشياطين وكان الشيطان لربه كفورا وإما تعرضن عنهم ابتغاء رحمة من ربك ترجوها فقل لهما قولا ميسورا ولا تجعل يدك مغلولة إلى عنقك ولا تبسطها كل البسط فتقعد ملوما محسورا إن ربك يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ويقدر إنه كان بعباده خبيرا بصيرا. Give to the near of kin his due, and also to the destitute and the traveler. And do not squander your wealth wastefully, for the wasteful are brothers of devils, and the devil is extremely ungrateful to his Lord. And if you have to disregard those in need because you are still seeking your Lord's bounty, which you are hopeful of, then speak to them softly. Neither tie your hand with the neck nor leave it totally loose, that you earn reproach and be reduced to indigence. Indeed, it is your Lord who gives abundantly to whomsoever he pleases, and sparingly to whomsoever he pleases. He surely is aware of his servants, he is observing them. So this passage, as you can see, continues with the moral directives, and to be more precise, the 10 commandments of the Quran. And the very first verse, which is verse 26, speaks about fulfilling the rights of the weakest sections of the society. So it has been outlined that as far as the near of kin is concerned, and the traveler and the destitute, you have to fulfill their rights. So وَآتِ ذَا الْقُرْبَى حَقَّهُ. So whatever their right is, you have to fulfill those rights. And remember, these rights are all those which are imposed on a person as per the conventions and traditions of a society. So the weaker sections of a society are always dependent on the stronger ones. And it is primarily the responsibility of the state to take care of them. And as a system of social security that it should establish, it can use the money which is collected in the public treasury, from which, of course, it can cater for the needs of all such elements. However, until the time the government is fully aware of this responsibility, or is in some form falling short in it, then all our citizens, or everyone who is living in that state, must do their needful, must come forward, and also realize that as far as helping out others is concerned, this is a responsibility which is imposed on us. In fact, helping the underprivileged is a right that they have on us, and this right is imposed by virtue of being blessed by the Almighty. So if the Almighty has blessed people with wealth and with prosperity, then in that situation, their wealth and their prosperity, they should share this wealth and prosperity with other people. This is the only way that they can show their gratitude and thanksgiving to the Almighty. So in particular, the whole list starts off with the near and kin. So Ati zal karba haqqahu wal miskin. So you give to the near of kin your right, which means that your blood relatives, people who are around you, people who are your very close relatives, they are the ones who deserve this first kindness. This first installment of your own sympathy is reserved for your close relatives. And of course, miskin is a person who is not only poor, but he or she is also unable to work. So the word miskin is more, it expresses the condition of a poor person in a more alarming way, which it actually tells us that's the person who is not only poor, who not only is able to or unable to take care of his own self or her own self, but at the same time, he or she cannot work for anything. And therefore, such people are the ones to whom we must reach out. And then the most important thing, which is mentioned after the right of the traveler is mentioned, is وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا, which means that do not waste your wealth on things which are absolutely rubbish and nonsensical. So there is a difference between the Quranic term israf. Israf means to spend, to overspend, to be a spendthrift. And tabzir actually refers to spending money on things which are prohibited, things which are wrong, things which must not be consumed in any way. So if we are doing that, then the Quran has a very, very stern warning for such people. It says that Innal mubazzirina kanu ikhwana shayateen, that people who waste their wealth, who spend it on wrong occasions or at wrong occasions, they are ones who would be called the brothers of the devil. The devils are their brothers, and wakana shaitanu li rabbihi kafura. It is the devil or Satan who is the greatest ingrate to his Lord, and this, of course, is understandable. That the Satan, he actually instills this view in people that you should save up money for your own self, because if you start spending on other people, then you will not be left with any penny. And at the same time, he also urges people, exhorts people, and lures them to spending on wrong things, things which are prohibited, things which are not pleasing in the eyes of the Almighty. So, as individuals, as human beings, we have to understand that the best possible worth and the best possible place of money is to spend it in a way that can not only fulfill our own needs, but at the same time also the needs of the society. The society is a place in which the Almighty has produced or placed individuals with varying degrees of abilities, and they have various positions in the society. So, therefore, people who are at the bottom of the society, who are the lowest rung of the ladder, so to speak, they are the ones about whom the Almighty wants that they should be looked after. And if we are not able to look after such people, then of course this is in some way expressing the fact that we will not acknowledge the favors of God, because the biggest right of acknowledging God's favors is to always share them with other people. The blessings that we have should be shared with other people. And one of the most important things in this regard that we have to understand is that at times we have very little to spare for other people. But then the Almighty says that this is the trial and test that each person passes through. You don't have to have a large amount of money to spend for the cause of God. Whatever you can make available in your own circumstances, it could be a very small amount. That is what should be spent. So instead of waiting for money to accumulate or to find out a big sum that might come your way and then you spend it for the cause of God, this is not the right attitude. The right attitude is whatever is at hand, whatever we can spare, should be done so for the cause of the Almighty. At the same time, at other instances in the Quran, it has been said that such spending must not be backed up by any reminders of generosity. We should not express our own favors on the person with whom we have been kind, because this would be something which would actually kill the very spirit of that spending. And the purpose of that spending was to elevate our inner self before the Almighty. And if we start reminding people of our generosity, then this does away with that very spirit. Also, very important is that this spending should not be a means of show off in any way. It should not be something about which we brag and boast, because this would once again kill the very objective of this spending. It has to be done in a way that we are able to hide that spending as much as we can. And if at all it has to come to notice, then it should only be in order to inspire other people or in order to urge other people to do this. So it goes on, the passage goes on to say, وَإِمَّا تُعْرِضَنَّ عَنْهُمُ ابْتِغَاءَ رَحْمَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكَ تَرْجُوهَا فَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا مَيْسُورًا. And if you have to disregard those in need because you are still seeking your Lord's bounty, which you are hopeful of, then speak to them softly. Again, a very, very important on the spot warning is sounded here, that if people come to us and we are not in a position to help them, our own pockets are empty, so to speak, and we are not able to raise enough money to help people, then we should not scold them in any way if they come to ask us for any help. In fact, the Quran uses the word وَكُلَّهُمَا قَوْلًا مَيْسُورًا, that you have to speak with them in a very gentle way, in a very polite way, and express your own inability to help them. It's almost like an apology, because remember, that person has a right over your wealth. And if you're not able to fulfill that, instead of scolding that person, in fact, you need to apologize to that person and very politely refuse that person. Of course, this also tells us one thing, and that is not only should we save money for our own needs, but we should also save money to give to people. So this is an object order of the Quran, that as far as spending in the way of God is concerned, this can only happen if we are able to save money for this purpose. So a very important thing in this regard is to not only spend, to not only save for our own needs, the needs of our family, the needs of our children, but also to save up money so that whenever someone comes up to us, we have enough saved up. And this is a very important lesson that we can learn. In fact, let me also point this out. It might be useful for all of us that when we are instructing our children to be generous and when we would like our children to help out the poor section of the society, one thing that can really help is that when we give them pocket money, we can give them some extra amount in that pocket money and specify that amount by telling them that, well, this particular amount, let's say 20% or 10% of that pocket money, you should spend for the poor, for the people who are around you who need your help, for maybe institutions around you who need your help. So, in this way, when you're giving up that amount of pocket money to your child, he or she would save it up for that purpose, and this would also create that habit in that child to spend for the cause of God. And then the next verse says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ فَتَقْعُدَ مَلُومًا مَحْسُورًا. Neither tie your hand with the neck nor leave it totally loose, that you earn reproach and be reduced to indigence. So, and indeed it is your Lord who gives abundantly to whomsoever he pleases, and sparingly to whomsoever he pleases. This again is a very important advice from the Quran, which means that you have to be moderate in your spending. So, neither tie your hand to your neck would actually mean that you are being stingy. You are holding back money wherever you should need to spend. And the other opposite extreme is that you just start spending like a spendthrift. You, whatever thing comes your way without thinking, you start just wasting money. So the Quran says that this should not be the case, because if you do so, you'll be reduced to indigence. And when someone at that time comes to ask for your help, you will be in a state of blameworthiness, because this was something that you should have done to save money for that person who might have come to you, but you spent it all and just emptied your pocket. So neither be stingy and nor be such a spendthrift. And if you do that, then remember that this is something which will augur in against you. It will not be in your favor. And also remember that the rule of the Almighty is that He has created people in this world with different in different degrees of financial competence. For example, there are people who are extremely financially well off and others who are not. And this is how the Almighty says that His own wisdom is such that He has created people rich and poor. And as He has created people who are rich and poor, so these classes are there. But the real thing is that as far as this class difference is concerned, we should try our best to provide equal opportunities to all sorts of people. And at the same time, people who are not well off, they should consider this state to be a trial from God. And people who are rich should also think that they are not being blessed because they have done something outstanding and this is their reward. On the contrary, this is a trial and test for the Almighty. So both these states are a trial and a test, and that is why the Almighty insists in saying this, that He gives sparingly to whomsoever He wants, and He gives in abundance to whomsoever He wants. And in both cases, the purpose is to check that person, to test his or her mettle, and to find out that this is how people behave when they are restricted in their means, and this is how people behave when they are provided for abundantly. So the last verse in this paragraph says, "Innahu kana bi ibadihi khabiran basira." He surely is aware of His servants. He is observing them. So by trying out people, by telling them that these circumstances that they come across will be used as a trial and test for your own future. So if anything happens, don't think that it will not be in God's notice. Every small thing, the smallest of things, is in God's notice, and therefore a person should rest assured that all his deeds will be rewarded, even if they are not in front of the world. ولا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق نحن نرزقهم وإياكم إن قتلهم كان خطأ كبيرا. Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you as well. Killing them surely is a heinous crime. ولا تقربوا الزنا إنه كان فاحشة وساء سبيلا. And do not go near adultery, because it is blatant lewdness and a very evil path. So we all know that in the Arab society of those times, children were killed out of the fear of poverty, especially young girls. They were buried alive, as we know from other instances in the Quran that this is what happened. And this is something which is so horrific that one does not, one cannot even imagine how a father or a mother can bury their children alive for fear of poverty. So the Quran says that the real reason for this killing is that you think that you are the providers of sustenance to them. Now, this is a grave misconception. The Almighty says, "Nahnu narzuquhum wa iyyakum." It is we. The Almighty says it is we who not only nourish you but those children as well. So don't be under this misconception that if by killing that child, it is you who is providing sustenance to them. This is not the case. No, sir. It is me who is providing sustenance to them and to you. And to kill them is a heinous crime. And then this last verse which mentions that you don't even go near adultery. La taqrabu zina innahu kana fahisha. It's a lewd thing. It's a thing which is absolutely vulgar. And why is it called so? Because it breaks the whole concept of marriage. The Almighty wants people to live together in an everlasting bond of marriage, a union in which a husband and wife come together in a permanent bond, so that the children which are born to them are able to benefit from both a father and a mother in their various stages of life. But adultery is something which absolutely kills and does away with these roots of a family system. So because of the fact that it is against a family system, adultery is something which the Quran says, it does not say that do not commit adultery. It says don't even go near it, which means that things that might lead to this horrific practice, to this bad and evil path should be avoided. So with these words, we come to an end to today's discussion. Remind yourselves that this passage about Surah Bani Israel is still continuing. Inshallah, we will probably finishing it off tomorrow. But for now, we have this time for your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad, for a very beautiful explanation. Our first question is coming from Rafia Khwaja. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Dr. Shehzad. Dr. Shehzad, you explained that the zakat on shares is 10%. But here, when the government charges 15% on every dividend which is given to me. So, what do I do with the extra 5% that's being cut? Because if I had to pay zakat, I would pay 10%, but they cut 15% tax. So
you have that extra cushion of 5%, and you can use it for your future zakat disbursements.
I see. Okay, so I can do it the next year. Add it and use it next year.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Baran, you may ask your question now.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Sir, my question is about the do not come near to zina, because how thin is that line? For example, if you are engaged to someone and you are about to marry, would it also be considered zina if you are engaging in sexual activities, for example?
If you're engaging in sexual activities with someone with whom you are engaged and the nikah has not yet taken place, is that what you're asking?
Yes, or like more in general, like what is considered zina?
So, of course, zina is adultery. It means sexual intercourse out of wedlock. That is something which is a given. I mean, this is a common word in Arabic and any other language. So, when it says don't even go near adultery, it means that things that might take you towards it, things that might lure you towards it. For example, you have to put a guard on your eyes. You should restrain your eyes from letting them take undue liberty by not staring at the opposite gender in a lustful way. So this is something which is also mentioned in the Quran. Similarly, you have to dress in a decent way. If you don't, and you expose your private parts in any way, this again is something that might lead you to this evil act. So two of these things are already mentioned in Surah Nur, and both of them, of course, relate to this preventive measure of not being led towards adultery. And one of them, of course, is to be careful in gazing towards at the opposite gender, and the second is to dress decently.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Rabia Jamil, you're next. You may ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum. My question is about the people who beg for the money and who ask themselves for the money, because my father says that giving them money is like wasting your money. They are not deserving people. So what if they like people on the signals and are the ones who come at your home and ask for the money, and so it gets so confusing for me. Should I give them money or not? So please guide me.
Right. So I mean, your father is quite right in his observation, because most of the beggars that we find at road signals, or who come and knock at your door or ring your bell, mostly these are professional beggars. And they have taken to beggary, and in most cases, they can do some work and earn money, but because this is an easy way out, so beggary has become a profession. And I think on most occasions, these beggars that we come across, they are these professional beggars. So the best thing is to avoid them if you are able to, but at times you do do get overwhelmed with emotions, because at times the person is very old, or you see a very small child maybe walking barefooted. So it's like a at the spot gut feeling that might lead you or guide you what to do. But mostly, yes, I think we should discourage them and tell them that they should do some work. But then there are other people as well, for example, who sell some items and who come to you. So I think this is a better form in which at least they are not asking for money, but they are selling some items. Someone that I know recently told me that what she does is that she has these small packets of biscuits and milk packets in her car. So whenever the car stops and some child or some beggar comes to her, what she does is she just hands over a biscuit packet or some edible thing to her, because regardless of the fact whether the person is a professional beggar or not, eating or food is a primary need of a person. So in one way, you are at least helping in their fodder and not giving them cash. So I think these are various measures which can be adopted. But by and large, yes, this is a menace that is which is I mean, found in our society, and it is the responsibility of the government to take care of these people. But unfortunately, they go unchecked.
Sorry,
Yes.
Rabia.
I said we hardly find any people who don't ask themselves. Like
Mm,
we all have the people all around us
mm,
who beg
mm,
themselves only.
mm,
Like
mm.
there are not other people who
Right.
just
I
like
think that
say
if you have
support.
an eye, if you have a keen eye, you'll find that there are people around you, maybe even in your family, in your friends and your neighbors, at your workplace, who might be in a spot of bother and who might apparently look well dressed or maybe well off. But if you have a keen eye, you can look beyond the apparent. You'll find out that these are people who will not come to you because of their self-esteem and self-respect. It is we that we need to reach out to them. So it's just a question of having that eye. Remember, a person who comes to you, it's easy for you to see whether that person is asking for money or not. But you look at people who might be in this situation, but because of their self-esteem and self-respect, they don't come to you. And I can tell you that a very large part of our society consists of these people who are white collar and who have this tremendous self-esteem. So I think if we start being more observant and keenly observe people around us, we will see that a person who looks apparently to be well set, he or she might be in some spot of bother.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There's a question in the chat which says, are women permitted to not having children willingly?
Well, I think
Because
if
according to some communities.
because you see,
Yes.
this is a decision between both the husband and wife. If the wife or the woman has this wish, I think it will be best if she communicates this desire to the husband before marriage, and it should be a joint desire. I mean, the natural desire or the natural outcome of marriage is that they should have children, but because of any specific circumstances, they could be medical or they could be psychological. There could be a number of valid reasons. I think for in such cases, it is best that this is communicated to the husband before marriage so that he knows what to expect.
So the Islam or the Muslim community, they do not have any say in this?
They don't. This is
Okay.
primarily the decision of the husband and wife, and they
Okay.
might be having a valid reason for not producing children. I mean, I know people who are psychologically not in a position to bear children or to have a family, who have some physical or mental ailments as a result of which doctors advise them not to have a family.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There's another question in the chat which says, when we pray Jummah prayer in a mosque behind an imam with an intention of the prayer, do we say it is Zohar prayer or is it Jummah prayer?
No, it's a Juma prayer. So Zohar is only prayed at home. I mean, or at the mosque at the time, and in the rest of the days except Friday. When you are standing behind an imam in congregation in a mosque, then this is nothing but the Friday prayer.
Thank you. Noreen, you may go and ask your question.
सर मुझे पूछना था कि सलात तस्बीह की जो नमाज होती है इस बारे में थोड़ा सा डिफाइन कर दें, जिसमें हम सुभान अल्लाह वल्हम्दुलिल्लाहि वला इलाहा इल्लल्लाहु वल्लाहु अकबर उसको हम मैनी टाइम रिपीटेडली पढ़ रहे होते हैं, तो उसके बारे में थोड़ा
लेकिन
सा बताइए कि
सलात
नमाज
तस्बीह
मिस
की जो नमाज है, ये नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से सेहत के साथ साबित नहीं है। हमारे यहाँ
ओके,
सगीर में बहुत लोग पढ़ते हैं, लेकिन ये सेहत के साथ ऑथेंटिकली इसका सबूत नहीं मिलता नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से।
Thank
ठीक
you.
है सर। और सर थोड़ा सा एतिकाफ के बारे में डिफाइन कर दीजिएगा फर्दर सेशंस में, ठीक है?
आइंदा सेशन में।
जी जी।
ओके।
Um, there's a question that I wanted to ask. There's a hadith that's very popular. Is that none of you have faith until I am more beloved to him than his children, his father, and all of the people. So, can you
Right.
please explain this?
Basically, this refers to the guidance which is brought by the Prophet and the way that he went about in giving us this guidance by sacrificing a lot of his. He sacrificed his personal gains, and he had to go through a lot of suffering for that. So when it is this hadith actually refers to the fact that when the religion that I brought before you, it does not become the most dearest thing to you, then it would mean that there is some hypocrisy which is left in you. Because to us, the faith is the foremost thing. It is the biggest thing that a person has to value, a believer has to value. And when the Prophet has referred this to himself, it is actually referring not to his person, but to what he has done for the Muslim community.
Thank you. I noted down some questions from very early sessions where we had a lot of questions and a lot of people in the audience. So, the first question is, what is the preferred ibadah for dark nights?
In odd nights, the most preferred form of worship, of course, is to say the Tahajjud prayer with more diligence, with attention. And I have referred this that you can pick up your Musaf, the Quran that you are reading. If you're not, you have not memorized sufficiently, so you can just pick up the Quran and read. And while you're reading, you can also glance through the translation. Other than that, of course, you're always not. If you're not doing tahajjud, then you can also read the Quran with a good translation. You can learn surah of the Quran. You can prostrate yourself before the Almighty. You can glorify Him. You can thank Him for all the favors that He has blessed us with. So all these things which connect us to God in various ways, you can make dua to Him. They form. They're all very, very important God connections, I would say. But to top them all would be that Tahajjud prayer, and after that Tahajjud prayer, reading the Quran with a good understanding of what we are reading.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Baran, you may ask your question.
Hello, sir. I did not get a clear answer on the one part. Like, for example, if you are engaged to a person and you're going to marry that person, but you engage in sexual activity before the official nikah, but you do eventually marry that person, would it still be considered zina?
Of course not. I mean, when you've done something in the past that you regret or you're ashamed of, and you have sought God's mercy as well, then hopefully you will be forgiven for that. But that would not be. That is something of the past, and if you have gotten over with it, hopefully, inshallah, it will not appear in your register of deeds. But once you marry the person with the same person. Unless you did commit adultery in the past in any way, of course, if that was the case, then in that situation, it has to be sincere repentance on that person's part. And once that is done, and you end up marrying the same person, and so marriage is something which is marriage. Of course, it cannot in any way be counted as adultery. That can only be thought of if it was done in the past out of any evil temptation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Thank you, Baran. There's a question in the chat. Sir, I am a teenager and I get desires in the society. It's very hard to control it. And when alone, most of the time we lose control. What is the best advice to avoid it or overcome it?
So, you see, as far as adolescence is concerned, when you are in this teen age, sexual desires, they are natural. It's a very common, it's a very natural biological phenomena. A person might be overcome with them. So, the best way is to have a good and a deep connection with God. Of course, you live in a pure and pious company as much as possible. you avoid things which might be provoking or in any way increasing the lust or the sexual desire which is already found in a person. But of course, this is also something that a person can do, that he can relieve his own sexual desire by self-gratification or masturbation. This is not a sin at all. People regard it to be a sin, or they make it make people feel guilty if they have indulged in this by telling them that it is a very heinous or a wrong act. There is nothing in the Quran or the Hadith which prohibits it. And if a person is so overcome that he has to somehow somehow relieve that desire from his own self, then this is also one option that he can undertake.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. Salman Aziz, you may ask your question.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
सर फेसबुक पे देखा कि एक मौलाना साहब जो है बयान कर रहे थे ये चीज के उनकी मस्जिद में कोई ऐसे साहब आ गए जो कि उस अकीदे के नहीं थे जिसकी वो मस्जिद थी, और उन्होंने कहा कि भाई आप इस मस्जिद की कुएं से 20 डोल निकालें और हमारी मस्जिद को पाक करें। बड़ी अफसोसनाक और अजीब गरीब सूरत हाल लगती है, लेकिन खुदा ना खासा इंसान इस किस्म की सूरत हाल में हो तो उससे कैसे डील करना चाहिए, उन लोगों को कैसे जो है कुछ बात करनी चाहिए या कैसे प्रोसीड करना चाहिए, काइंडली गाइड कीजिएगा इस बारे में।
ऐसे लोगों से तो बात नहीं की जा सकती, क्योंकि वो उन्होंने अकल से दीन को नहीं समझा होता, उन्होंने जज्बात से समझा होता है। तो अगर आप वो शख्स हैं कि जो गलती से आ गए हैं तो चुपचाप वहाँ से चले जाएं, और अगर आप वहाँ पे एक नमाजी के तौर पे हैं तब भी इस मसले को इग्नोर करें, बाद में जाके आप उसकी तारीफ़ कल्ब कर सकते हैं। क्योंकि देखिए, जो लोग ये काम करते हैं ये वो लोग हैं कि जिनसे कोई इस्तदलाल की बुनियाद पर गुफ्तगू नहीं की जा सकती। तो सबसे बेहतर ये होता है कि उधर माजरत कर ली जाए और जिसके साथ ज्यादती हुई है उसकी अलग से तारीफ़ कल्ब कर दी जाए।
There's a question in the chat. Can women go to the mosque when she is on their period?
Yes, they can. The only thing is that they would not be required to offer the prayer, but they can go and sit there.
Thank you. There's another question in the chat which says, how many rakats are there in Jummah prayer, total rakat?
2 rakat. That is everyone knows that it's something that we all, that has been transmitted to us through the perpetual adherence to this practice by the Ummah. So this is just 2 rakat.
Okay, so follow-up question on the thing that why are women prohibited to pray when they are on their period? Is it because they are relieved from the prayer, or is it because they are not clean?
So, they're part of both. They are relieved from the prayer because this is an unclean state. So, because this blood is called to be an impurity by the Quran, and so therefore, it is during this situation that they are given this relief of not fasting. They can break their fast, but they need to make it up. But similarly, they are not required to pray, but making up for the prayer is not required at all. So basically, it is because of that impurity. And remember, because our religion is a religion in which purity, not only physical purity, but also spiritual purity is required. So because this is a physical impurity that is inflicted to women when they are passing through their periods, so that is why they have been exempted.
Thank you. Rafia, you may ask your question.
Dr. Shehzad, it is true that at that time the Arab people used to bury their daughters. There was a particular reason because they wanted sons, or was there any other reason for doing
No,
this?
the basic reason was because a daughter would not be a helping hand and she would not be an earning hand. So they would consider her daughter to be a burden on their family. So it was because of providing for them, and they being in a situation that they are always being provided for and they are not in a position to provide others. So they would think that these daughters are a burden because they cannot earn, they cannot work the way sons can.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. There's a question in the chat which is, as per a hadith, it says that do nikah and I will provide you a good financial condition. But most of the parents don't understand, and how can I convince my parents if I want to stay away from a haram act that makes me guilty for a lifetime?
Well, actually, you see, as far as nikah is concerned, it's not at times so easy, because if you're not standing on your feet, you're not able to support your wife, so to speak, then this is something which naturally causes a hindrance, because today boys and girls, they get settled in their life. If they pursue a professional career, well into their early 30s at times, and maybe in their late 20s. So unless you are able to, I mean, either your father is going to support you. In that case, of course, you'll be dependent on him. Other than that, if you're going to support your wife, then you have to be in a position to be financially supportive to her. And because this professional education takes some time, and also, unfortunately, the tradition which has come so rampant in our society is marriages are taking place at a very later age, at times without any plausible reason. So yes, as far as a responsible citizen is concerned, he or she can make this case before their parents that, well, we are in a position to marry, and if we are able to take care of our expenses, then the father and the mother of both should agree. This is what should happen. And if the person in question is having any difficulty, then there has to be something which needs to be known. Maybe the father and the mother, they are concerned about some aspect. So, I mean, I just gave a general answer. So if the person would like to give a more pinpointed answer for me, then perhaps he can or she can get in touch with me individually so that I can know more about the situation and then answer.
Thank you, Dr. Shehzad. We will be concluding our session here today. Thank you all for joining and participating. See you all tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.